everybody. Please come on in and take your seats. We are about to celebrate the life and legacy of Charlene Mitchell. So please, come in, take your seats. We will have time to fellowship, but take your seats now. Greetings again, everyone. Please come on in. Please take your seats. At this time, I'd like to bring up Ms. Antoinette Montague and the Antoinette Montague Experience. We're going to start the program in the celebration of the life and legacy of Charlene Mitchell with a song, Lift Every Voice and Sing.
Feel free to sing along. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Come on, y'all. Ring with a harmony, okay, of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Going to Africa, sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has taught us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Celebrate how we got over. Our soul looks back. Lift every voice and sing, come on, till earth and heaven ring. Ring with a harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Everyone sing a song. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Shout out beneath thy hand. May we forever and ever stand true to our God, true to our native land. Yeah, we're gonna keep marching. We're gonna keep on rising. We're gonna build our family, our global family. Man,
experience. I want to, okay.
Danny Mixon, Harlem's own Danny Mixon. Out of Broadway's recently Phantom of the Opera, the great Melissa, Dr. Melissa Slocum on bass. And Dr. Darrell Smith on drums. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. All right, everyone, welcome, welcome. I am Mildred Williamson, proud to have been asked to be the moderator today, and proud to be one of the, I think, mentees of our own Charlene Mitchell. We have a few special speakers for you today, and we're going to start with Faye Moore. Is Faye Moore here? Wonderful. Faye Moore has been committed to service most of her adult life. After several years as a rank-and-file human service worker and activist, in 1993 she began working full-time for the Social Services Employee Union Local 371. While there, she worked as assistant to President Charles Inslee, and in 1994 was elected Vice President of Grievances and Legal Services. It was at Local 371 where Faye met and was mentored by Charlene Mitchell. She was elected president in 2008 and returned to city service in 2011. Today, she is now Director of Contract Enforcement for the Professional Staff Congress, AFT Local 2334, and the union representing faculty and administrative staff of the City University of New York. Please join me in welcoming Faye Moore.
Good afternoon. I want to thank the committee for this opportunity to share my thoughts and express gratitude to my friend, my surrogate mom, and my colleague, Charlene Mitchell. When the late Charles Inslee, then president of the Social Service Employees Union Local 371, pulled me aside and told me that he was hiring Charlene Mitchell to be his executive assistant, I didn't know what to think. I knew who Charlene was. Her run for president in 1968 made quite an impact on my 9-year-old self. I had some contact with her as a staffer at Local 371, and she was our direct contact to Sister Angela Davis. Charlene was an icon of progressive politics and an unparalleled organizer. It didn't seem real that she wanted to work with us, never mind for us. I didn't know what to think, but I knew how I felt. I was excited, I was intimidated, and I was hopeful. When Charlene joined the Local 371 staff, she jumped in with both feet. She learned every part of the union and offered critique to every part of the union, whether it was solicited or not. When Charlene and I it took a while for us to warm up, me more than her, because at any moment in my interactions with Charlene, I was either awestruck or exasperated. We really bonded when we put together our first Local 371 Black History program as a team. Charlene was a living Rolodex of contacts to the Black left. When we went through possible keynote speakers, we would discuss who would be too radical, who's not mainstream enough, or just a bad idea. Charlene describing big names of people who only played radical for TV cameras would have me laughing all the way home sometime. But Charlene's input, her finesse, her natural troubleshooting enabled us to put together consistent, high-quality celebrations of the Black experience every year. Young people loved Charlene, not only because she was a natural teacher, but because she was open and willing to learn. I believe it was an immigrant rights march when she heard for the first time the chant, Tell me what democracy looks like. She grabbed me by the arm and said, I really like that. These young people have given us something new. She was so excited. Charlene didn't dismiss the ideas of young people, and she didn't dwell in nostalgia when there was an opportunity to take real action. Unlike some from the civil rights era and of the movement, Charlene continued working on various causes and was shamelessly aggressive about getting young people involved and in front. When Local 371, while Local 371 was one of the early financial contributors to the Free Mumia movement, when we hired Charlene, she demanded that we be visible. And she grabbed the younger people, and they would show up at those meetings, at those rallies on those Saturdays. Charlene didn't like being in the front. She liked being among the masses, making sure her organizing strategy was working. But she would never let you be in the front unless you had prepared yourself. To be loved by Charlene was a privilege, and when Charlene loves you, you get a whole family. As many of you know, I'm sorry. Don't deduct this from my time. As many of you know, she was one of those people to whom you could not say no. So you just did what she asked, but it was always something to benefit others. Charlene taught us in order to fully commit to this struggle, you had to love. You had to love a people, you had to love justice, and you had to love equality. Through Charlene, I met so many warriors who love the people, justice, and equality, and they're staying in this fight. And I gained a bonus brother. I gained Stephen, who even picks on me like a bonus brother. But Stephen showed all of us what mother-son love looks like. I think of Charlene often in this political moment. When I show up at Black Lives Matter rallies or anti-racist violence rallies, I feel her with me. When I see the new breed of progressives like AOC, Justin Jones, Justin Pearson, Gloria Johnson, India Walton, and Ilhan Omar, and socialists that run as socialists, I wonder if they know that their candidacies and elections were made possible by the work of Charlene Mitchell and so many others. Rest well, rest in power, rest in peace, my political mom. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to introduce someone who, I hope I got this right, came from St. Louis by way of New York City, and thankfully to the great city of Chicago. My brother in struggle, Mr. Frank Chapman, who along with Angela Davis led the refounding of the National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. And of course, as one of the successful cases of the original National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, I can't tell you enough how much he's done just for the city of Chicago, let alone what he may have done nationally. We have the best civilian police accountability apparatus, I believe, in the country because of the work that the Chicago Alliance has done under the leadership of Frank Chapman. And I would say that the lessons of community plus union organizing and collaboration led us to the current mayor-elect Brandon Johnson for the city of Chicago. Among those who deserve credit for this victory thus far is Brother Frank Chapman. Come on up.
Thank you, Mildred. I promise to respect the time limit. So I prepared my remarks. That's the only way I can do that. So I'll get right to it. I remember Charlene as a dear friend, comrade, and mentor. I'm here to pay tribute to her as a great leader of our movement, National Alliance Against Race and Political Repression, and ask you to join us as we dip our banners of struggle for our dear comrade, Charlene Mitchell, Charlene Alexander Mitchell, who was born June 8, 1930, and died on December 14, 2022. A lot of things will be said here today about Charlene's particular political contributions, her rise to leadership in the Communist Party, her being the first black woman to run for president, and the tremendous contributions she made in defense of democracy and the freeing of hundreds of political prisoners during the 1970s and 80s. This is all very deserving inasmuch as it demonstrates the breadth and depth of her as a human being and a great revolutionary. However, there's one very critical point about Charlene's life and her legacy I want to emphasize, and that is she was the first among those in the 20th century, along with Angela Davis, Henry Winston, William Patterson, members of her family, and other black freedom fighters, workers, and communists, who created one of the most powerful and inspiring movements in the campaign to free Angela Davis and all political prisoners. It is amazing to think of what that moment accomplished in over 60 different countries and over 1,000 cities in the United States. The call went out to free all political prisoners at the time. The call included those who had gone to jail for political reasons, but also those who had gone to jail for other reasons, in the main being trapped in ghettos and the constant cycles of crime, but who later on became political prisoners in their fight for human rights while they were in prison, like the Attica brothers, like George Jackson, like myself. I was languishing in a dungeon called the Missouri State Penitentiary and fighting an uphill battle to overturn a sentence of life plus 50 years when the National Alliance was founded by Charlene Mitchell, Angela Davis, Ann Braden, and 700 other brave souls in Chicago in 1973. Some of them are here now at that table. In 1976, I came home from prison because of the Alliance. And in 1981, I was granted an executive clemency by the governor of Missouri because of the unspeakable power of the movement led by Charlene Mitchell. Charlene organized and fought not only for Angela Davis, but also helped to free many more from the hellholes of America's prisons. The Wilmington 10, Joanne Little, Johnny Monty Harris, Mary Eddie James Carthan, just to name a few. Because of the accomplishments of the movement she led, I believe Charlene's legacy has a far deeper meaning for black liberation and the struggle for democracy. This is the legacy that I want to bring attention to. This is the legacy which I think has fueled more than anything else the fires that we still see burning in the struggle for black liberation to date. This fueled the fires of the George Floyd Rebellion and Breonna Taylor Rebellion. The fact that the Alliance was engaged in this rebellion in a leadership role is no small tribute to Charlene's historic contribution to our movement for over 50 years. The Chicago Alliance winning the enactment of the ordinance empowering communities for public safety is a tribute to her as well. That's the legacy that she left us. She left us a legacy of struggle. She used to say, organization plus unity plus struggle equals victory. We still have that in our literature. And every time we put that in our literature, we honor Charlene Mitchell because she's the one that gave us that. She is the one who has taught through the example of her life a whole generation of freedom fighters how to organize, struggle, and bring to an end the police tyranny that reigns in our communities. She said, lead our people not in their frustration, but lead them out of it. Every time we organize a fight to free a political prisoner, every time we organize a fight against police crimes and police brutality and murder, every time we work with families that have lost loved ones, with families who still have loved ones that are languishing in prison, every time we do this, here and now, we pay tribute to Charlene Mitchell, who started the fight for us over 50 years ago. Charlene was the architect and the strategic leader of the most massive defense campaign in history, defending the Black liberation movement, the democratic rights of workers to organize, and the rights of revolutionaries, be they communists, the nationally oppressed, or both. Long live the memory of Charlene Mitchell. In our hearts, our minds, and our deeds.
Our next speaker is Leslie Kagan. There are few peace and human rights movements that Leslie has not been a part of and not been a part of organizing. I just want to name a few. She was the national coordinator of United for Peace and Justice, the largest coalition against the U.S. invasion of Iraq. She organized a 1 million-person nuclear disarmament demonstration in New York City in '82. She led the historic Lesbian Gay Rights March on Washington, October 1987. She led the People's Climate March in New York City in 2014. 2019, Queer Liberation March in New York City on the 50th anniversary of Stonewall. I am proud to know Leslie Kagan and to have served with her as she was one of 5 named co-chairpersons of the Committee's Correspondence for Democracy and Socialism. Please welcome Leslie Kagan.
Thank you. Thank you. I am humbled to be here today, to honor, to remember, to celebrate Charlene. I had heard about Charlene well before we met or worked together. I knew about the international campaign to free Angela Davis that Charlene coordinated. I knew about the National Committee Against Racist and Political Repression. I knew that she had run for president. I knew that she was a leader in the Communist Party. I'm a generation younger than Charlene. That doesn't make me young, but I'm a generation younger than Charlene. My politics were shaped by growing up in a lefty activist family with relatives and close friends that were in the party, and by coming of age politically in the midst of the cultural explosion and the dynamism of mass movements for freedom and peace in the 50s and 60s. I was part of the New Left. And at the same time, I wanted to know more about the struggles of earlier decades. And I wanted to understand the role of the Communist Party in those struggles. Through my involvement in various coalitions, I met smart and very committed people from the party. I was never interested in joining the party, but I listened carefully to what the party people were saying, and I wanted to know more. One of the people I wanted to know more about and more from was Charlene. I think it was in 1991 when I heard about the planning for a conference to initiate a new socialist organization. I got involved in the organizing for that conference, and by the end of the weekend gathering in 1992, I was part of the leadership team of the Committees of Correspondence for Democracy and Socialism. For the next several years, I had the opportunity and the privilege to work closely with Charlene. We worked together in an office near the World Trade Center. She constantly had her eyes on the prize, always thinking strategically about where we need to focus our energies. At the same time, she never lost sight of the details of the work. Her insightful, long-term ideas were always matched with the specifics of what needed to be done today. And she was not hesitant to get her hands dirty, whether that was tackling major problems or making sure the mailings got sent out on time. Remember when we used to send mailings? Most importantly, her moral compass was steadily set at that North Star. She was the living expression of commitment, solidarity, internationalism, working for the greater good, and never backing away from a hard fight. Her strategic insights were grounded in the realities of the moment and shaped by a passion for justice and freedom and peace. I didn't always agree with her, but she always said things that made us all think. She held firmly to her ideas and beliefs, so much so that at times it was hard to disagree with her. I paid attention to what she was saying, the way she interacted with people, how she ran a meeting, and much, much more. I was in a master class when working with Charlene. I don't recall the date right now. I think it was 2008. My partner, Melanie K. Kantrowitz, and I made a trip to Cuba. Because Melanie had Parkinson's disease, we were able to set up a visit at the International Center of Neurological Restoration. But the highlight of the afternoon there came when we were able to have a short visit with Charlene. She had had a serious stroke and was in Havana for treatment. Charlene was in the middle of her daily, every single day, routine of extensive physical therapy. The minute she saw us, that wonderful, welcome, big smile of hers appeared. As important as the years of political work had been, it was the personal connection that meant so much to both of us. She took a break from the BT and we chatted. even with the difficulty she had speaking. It wasn't the long visit, but I had that special feeling you get when you're with an old friend, accompanied her. When I think of Charlene, I think of Ella's song, written by Bernice Johnson Reagan, who built on the words of the great civil rights organizer Ella Baker, who said, "We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes." One verse of the song says, quote, "Struggling myself don't mean a whole lot. I've come to realize that teaching others to stand up and fight is the only way our struggle survives." And I think of the words, again, as I think of Charlene, the words of Amanda Gorman from her poem, "The Hill We Climb." There is, quote, "There is always light. If only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it." Charlene was brave enough to see and to be that light. I, like many of us, learned so much from Charlene. I will always be thankful that I had an opportunity to work so closely with her and to call her my friend. Charlene Mitchell, presente.
Our next speaker. All right, our next speaker is, I call him Mr. Suave. That would be Lennox S. Hines, who is Professor Emeritus of Law and former Chair of Administration and Justice Program at Rutgers University. His practice as a criminal defense and international human rights lawyer. He was Nelson Mandela's U.S. attorney and counsel in the U.S. to the government of South Africa and the African National Congress of South Africa and SWAPO of Namibia. He's the permanent representative to the United Nations in New York for the International Association of Democratic Lawyers. Many of you know him for many, many years as National Director of the National Conference of Black Lawyers for the United States and Canada. And for me, I will ever remember him as one of the board members of the original National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. So please, let's welcome Mr. Suave. Brother Lennox Hines.
Mildred, you have to stop that. I mean, you embarrass me by calling me Mr. Suave. I was told by Ann Mitchell that I was given a certain period of time to speak, and because I am known to get up and when I'm before a mic, I get hypnotized and I don't realize that time flies. So I was told that there are time cards that are going to be given to me after 2 minutes, after 1 minute, after 30 seconds, and so on. And if I did not adhere to the time cards, the mic would be cut off. So I am not going to be embarrassed up here with the mic being cut off. And so I've prepared some notes. And I have timed myself, and I am actually going to speak for 4 minutes and 30 seconds. As I look around the room here, I see so many of warriors who have championed so many causes, both for the National Alliance and the National Conference of Black Lawyers. Comrades and friends, I want to thank Mildred and Mary Lou and other members of the organizing committee for organizing this celebration of the life, of the legacy, of the vision, the accomplishments, and the courage of my dear friend, comrade, and mentor, Charlene Mitchell. Whatever I say here today will fail to do justice to the complexity, the depth, and remarkable courage of the essential Charlene Mitchell. Charlene's legacy as a freedom fighter, as an organizer extraordinaire, extends beyond the shores of the United States. She constantly linked the struggles and our struggles for racial justice in the United States to the worldwide anti-imperialist struggle. She led the anti-apartheid fight in the United States, including organizing the first international conference in 1981, right here at Riverside Church in support of the ANC, SWAPO, and the Frontline States, which was attended by Oliver Tambo. On Nelson Mandela's US tour in 1990, after his release from prison, I was his US lawyer during that tour, and he specifically requested me to organize a private meeting to thank Charlene and Angela, and I did so. Every step that Charlene took to build organizations, to build movements and coalitions have been dedicated to ensuring the dignity of every woman, ensuring the dignity of every child, ensuring the dignity of every man in the world, and to ending the scourge of racism. Charlene Mitchell was not only a gifted leader. She was not only an inspiring organizer. She was not only an undaunted freedom fighter. She was also the most remarkable person that I knew. Her optimism in the power of the people renewed my faith that change is possible, that justice is attainable, and that each individual life can make a difference. I knew Charlene before 1973, but actually began working with her at the founding conference of the National Alliance Against Racist and Political Oppression, right here in Harlem, at the Harlem YMCA. That was the same year I succeeded Haywood Burns as the director of the National Conference of Black Lawyers. But before I knew it, in a split second, Charlene had recruited me and organized me as the first general counsel of the National Alliance, put me on the board as one of the co-chairs later on, but that was Charlene, the organizer. Charlene's prescription for organizing mass movements and for struggle, as most of you know, was unity plus struggle equals what? Victory. Unity plus struggle equals victory. And that mirrors Frederick Douglass's prescription for struggle and for achieving justice while alerting the world to the join in the struggle against slavery. Douglass prophetically said that not only is light needed, but fire. It is not the gentle shower alone, but the thunder. We need the storm, the whirlwind, and the earthquake. The feelings of the nation must be quickened. Their conscience must be aroused. Their propriety must be startled. The hypocrisy must be exposed, and its crimes against God and mankind denounced. My friends, if Charlene was here today in this room, what message would she give to us? I believe that Charlene would simply say to us, do not mourn, organize, organize. La lucha continua. Thank you.
Okay. He did so good. Okay. Okay. I want to acknowledge an error. I failed to do a proper introduction, and I want to do it now. Antoinette Montague hails from the great city of Newark and is a New York-based international crowd-pleasing jazz and blues singer, entertainer, band leader, educator, promoter, and host and producer on Zoom. Miss Montague was recently featured on NBC's Positively Black with the Duke Ellington Center for the Arts. I would like for you all to give a warm re-welcome her and her Montague experience back to the stage. Thank you.
Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. Keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom's land. Don't let nobody turn us around, no. Focus on our dreams and go to higher ground. Don't let no hatred turn you around, turn you around, turn you around. Keep your heart on the higher ground. Keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Come on, Danny. don't turn around. No resting on laurel. Take us to higher ground. Don't you let nobody turn you around, turn you around, turn you around. Keep our feet on higher ground. Keep on marching. Keep on talking and demanding. Marching up to freedom. God bless you. Vixen on piano, Melissa Slocum on bass, Darryl Smith on drum.
Okay. Now I'd like to introduce you, who may not know, but many of you already know, to Margaret Burnham. She is a distinguished professor of law and Africana studies at Northeastern University, where she directs the Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Project and the Center on Race, Equity, and Law. Her book, By Hands Now Known, Jim Crow's Legal Executioners, was published to wide acclaim in 2022. At the time of the Angela Davis campaign, while she was a criminal defense attorney, Professor Burnham defended Angela Davis 50 years ago against California capital charges. And clearly, they won. She worked closely with Charlene Mitchell to build a global political movement to win Davis's freedom. Please join me in welcoming Professor, Sister Margaret Burnham.
Thank you so much. Hey, suave Margaret Burnham, okay? I'm not giving that up for my brother Lennox. Well, this is really a joy, a pleasure, and a historic occasion to be here with this group of stellar, historic, and dare I say, older organizers, friends, and comrades and colleagues of our dear Charlene Mitchell. It is really an honor to follow Leslie and Frank and Lennox, who have laid out for us all of Charlene's accomplishments, her achievements, her leadership, and her legacy. And like Frank and Lennox, I too have been given my marching orders by Anne. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Mary Lou, for pulling all this together. And thank you so much. Charlene wanted music at this event. She knew, as we all must know, that our time will come, and there will be people, we hope, sitting around singing our praises and talking about our lives. And she wanted that occasion, this one, to be filled with music. And so thank you as well. Music from our movement, music that speaks of liberation and of struggle. And thank you so much to Antoinette Montague for making that happen. I first met Charlene at her apartment in New York City shortly after Angela was captured. It was in October of 1970, and I had visited with Angela at the House of Detention a few times, and then was asked to go and visit Charlene at her apartment with John Abt, the lawyer for the Communist Party USA. The two of us went up to Charlene's apartment, and I believe that Franklin Alexander, whose name we should also bring into our circle here today, was there. you can imagine what a chaotic time that was. The press from all over the world were hovering around the case. Lawyers from all over the country were calling to determine whether they could be of some assistance. And the capital charges against Angela were looming over all of this. So for John and I, following John's leadership, thought that we had our legal wits about us, but we also knew that we were swimming in deep, deep chaos. So I didn't know then, but I would return to that apartment hundreds of times after that October 1970 occasion. And I would sit on that couch in Charlene's apartment and listen to her, just listen to her, share her political thoughts. And not only that, but talk to her and enjoy and benefit from the deep empathy and emotional brilliance that she brought to everything she touched. If you talk to Charlene about a personal problem, she would listen and respond with extraordinary intuition and sensitivity. That broad, gorgeous smile, that luminous smile that she had and that she shared with all of us, I didn't know in October of 1970 that I would see it so many other times in that apartment. And that also, she and I would, from time to time, share a solid drink together, right there in that apartment. But that day, we were there to be interviewed by Charlene. We didn't know it at the time. She didn't say that. But it was clearly an opportunity for Charlene to see if, she knew that John had it, but to see if I had what she thought it would take to defend her dear sister. She passed on me, and I think I persuaded her. Charlene would bring enormous clarity to all the noise and all the chaos that was surrounding us at that time. Political clarity, and as I said, emotional stability, all of that she brought to the table. Should we be alarmed? Of course we should be. Should we be scared? Maybe we should be. Were we going to win? Even in October of 1970, at the dimmest moments of at our dimmest moments, Charlene was persuaded that we would, in the long run, win. She knew that what we had to wage was a successful legal campaign, and she knew as well that a successful legal campaign depended on, was intertwined and married with, a successful political campaign, that they were twinned and interdependent. Now, John knew that too, and I had some inkling of that, but we didn't actually perceive what that meant in practice, what the steps were to link together the political campaign and the legal work in the courtroom. That was Charlene. Not just in October, not just beginning with her insights in October of 1970, but across that campaign. When Angela was arrested and taken out to California in December of 1970, Charlene came out. She helped us put together a legal team. She instructed that legal team. She helped put together the National Alliance for Racist, not the National Committees to Free Angela Davis, thank you, and all political prisoners. And she helped again to weave the strategy of the legal campaign to the work of the national committees as led by Charlene, Franklin Alexander, and Kendra Alexander. May all of them rest in power. Charlene, as Lennox and Leslie and Frank have already said, Charlene was prepared in October of 1970 when she took on Angela's fight. Her campaign in 1968 had prepared her. Her long membership in her party from the 1940s had prepared her. Her efforts to correct and direct the organization to which she devoted her life, the Communist Party, US of A, had prepared her for all that she brought to that work. Of all of the measures of Charlene's impact, and as I say, we've captured them in the images and the words of those who have preceded me to this platform. But for me, of all of the measures of her impact, her unparalleled leadership of the National Alliance. Some of you will remember our founding conference in Chicago, where Charlene and Mr. Suave and others and Angela brought together 800 people to launch this organization. Were there predecessors? Of course they were. Let's bring into the room the name of Bill Patterson. Of course there were. But Charlene's leadership, her vision of what was required to build a defense organization that could defend communists and everyone else fighting for struggle and freedom, struggling for freedom, her leadership, her vision was unique. She rested on the shoulders of others, of course, and I mentioned Bill Patterson, and there are many others. But for me, her impact, the most indelible and historical aspect of her impact is this, my brothers, my sisters, my friends here, this truth, this simple truth. Without Charlene Mitchell, Angela Davis would not be with us today in this room. Angela Davis would today, without Charlene, but for Charlene's devotion, her leadership, her intelligence, her brilliance, her political commitments, but for that, Angela would be in a jail cell today. And I say that because she's dead now and she can't be prosecuted. Charlene helped Angela survive from August to October of 1970 when she hid from those who would have lynched her. She helped her survive, and then she designed and led the international movement which won her freedom. So I want to close with Charlene's words. This is what she wrote in her will, dear friends. And as I share them with you, let's all have in mind that beautiful smile, that spirit, that beauty that was our friend. She said, I direct that my funeral service shall not be religious, but shall be conducted in a manner consistent with my lifelong beliefs. This does not preclude a service from taking place in a house of religious worship. We've done that. Neither does it prevent any minister of religion from participating. We'll do that. Specifically, I direct that no part of my political history shall be omitted from any recitation of my life and work. I desire that the music and literature of struggle and liberation be celebrated, including, and we will do this, the playing of the Internationale. Rest in peace, rest in power. A luta continua presente, my dear sister Charlene.
Moving along and following Charlene's wishes, Dr. Benjamin Franklin Chavis Jr. hails from Oxford, North Carolina. He is an African-American civil rights leader and icon, United Church of Christ ordained minister, author, journalist, organic chemist, environmentalist, global entrepreneur, and currently president and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association based in Washington, D.C. We know Reverend Chavis as Reverend Ben Chavis and the Wilmington 10, whose case was amongst the earliest that was taken up by the National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. I'd like for all of you to join me in welcoming Dr. Reverend Benjamin Chavis to the podium.
Sisters and brothers, friends and comrades, I first want to say in this esteemed hall, this esteemed sanctuary, that we all thank God for the life and the living legacy of Charlene Mitchell. We thank God. We are here to remember and to discern a pathway forward that pays tribute to the outstanding contributions of our dear sister leader, Charlene Mitchell. From North Carolina, on behalf of each member of the Wilmington 10, the Charlotte 3, the Raleigh 2, the Wilmington 3, Joanne Little, and all other political prisoners who have been unjustly imprisoned throughout the United States of America, we express our profound gratitude and acknowledgement of the leadership, solidarity, and steadfast commitment of Charlene Mitchell and the National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. If it were not for the consistent work and commitment of Charlene Mitchell, Angela Davis, Margaret Burnham, and many, many others, and all of the staff and supporters of the National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, many of us would still be in prison today. As we are assembled here from across the United States, and while people are viewing this by live stream from throughout the world, we can say without contradiction that Charlene Mitchell's example of principled leadership, activism, and commitment to freedom, justice, and equality was consistently embodied in her love and devotion first to her family and to her extended family of comrades. and to the national and international struggle against racism and imperialism. I'm also here representing the Black Press of America via the National Newspaper Publishers Association. We have noted for the record, and we have enshrined the name and legacy of Charlene Mitchell in our national archives as one of the most transformative freedom-fighting leaders of the global freedom movement. I'm going to leave script a moment. I'm concerned that as one who's been involved in the civil rights movement all my life, from the 1950s up until now, I don't think that we give women enough credit for their leadership in our freedom struggle. Now, I'm going to take this opportunity. If it were not for freedom fighters like Charlene Mitchell, we would not have had a movement. And we're not going to have a movement today going forward if we don't raise up more Charlene Mitchells, more Rosa Parks, more Fannie Lou Hamers. And I think particularly for black women who face the onslaught today, I think, Lennis, you would join me, I think those of us who are brothers, as men, we need to speak up more to support our women leaders and not keep them in the shadows and not pretend like they don't make a contribution. I'll go back on script. For me, personally, and for each member of the Chavis family, we witnessed how Charlene would always come up with an effective strategy to keep everyone in the family engaged and active. My younger sister, Dr. Francine Chavis, has been practicing medicine now for about 40 years at the Granville County Hospital in Oxford, North Carolina. But my sister would never be a doctor today if it wasn't for the opportunity that Charlene Mitchell gave my sister to study medicine in East Germany. And ironically today, Francine is over a hospital in North Carolina where she was born in 1949, but segregated. My mother could not have gone to that hospital to deliver her. So she's over a hospital that she could not be born in. But that shows you that fighting for freedom does make a difference. Fighting for freedom does change not only one's personal life circumstances, but collectively, fighting for freedom changes the circumstances for millions of people throughout the world. And that's why we're here to celebrate Charlene Mitchell. But Charlene will also show us how to fight with a commitment to active collective struggle, truth, integrity, coalition building, and compassion for those who continue to be oppressed and suppressed. As a memorial tribute to the phenomenal legacy of Charlene Mitchell, I want to quote another phenomenal woman of this century, Maya Angelou, who said so affectionately, quote, "Love recognizes no barriers. It jumps hurdles, leaps fences, penetrates walls to arrive at its destination of hope, full of hope for all," unquote. Charlene's love and commitment recognized no racial barriers. Her love jumped hurdles of hate. Charlene Mitchell's love and commitment leaped the barbed wire fences and penetrated the prison walls across America, where the mass incarceration of our peoples continues to grow. Yet, we are here to affirm and to rededicate ourselves, each of us, to be inspired by the example of the love and commitment of Charlene Mitchell. Long live the freedom-fighting spirit. Long live the freedom-fighting love of our dear beloved comrade and leader, Charlene Mitchell. Basta la represión. Basta Donald Trump. Basta Governor DeSantis, basta racism, a lucha continua, victoria cert, viva la revolution, viva espiritu, Charlene Mitchell.
Got me going. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. I want to now introduce you to Trevor Fowler, who has over 50 years in political, non-governmental, and professional support organizations in Canada, the United States, Botswana, United Kingdom, and South Africa, who's also a civil engineer. He's a member of the Central Committee of the South African Communist Party. He served several leadership roles in the African National Congress. Trevor joined the ANC in Lusaka, Zambia in 1970. He met Charlene on March 8, 1971 in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, as part of the campaign to free Angela Davis and all political prisoners in the United States, and developed a strong bond with the late Charlene Mitchell. We are honored to have Trevor Fowler with us here today.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me say to Steve, to Mike, that I bring condolences from communists in South Africa. In particular, there's Josiah Jelly, who worked very closely with Charlene, Isop Pahad, and other communists. Charlene made a difference not only in the US, but made a difference in South Africa. I remember Charlene as the first time I met her as a keynote speaker in 1971 on the 8th of March on International Women's Day. And she came to speak in Winnipeg, Canada, at a rally that was organized for the freedom of Angela Davis. The acquaintance that I made with Charlene on that day was the start of a friendship with an extraordinary woman who contributed to my life in a way that is immeasurable, as she did with many people like myself and many of you here. Coincidentally, Charlene's birthday is was the 8th of June, which is the same as my mother's, the 8th of June. In fact, when I was to speak at that International Women's Day conference that Charlene spoke at, I froze for several minutes because I hadn't really spoken publicly. And it was through the coaching of Charlene and also Shirley Williams, who was the organizer for the National United Committee to Free Angela Davis. Charlene had an incredible ability to communicate the complex mechanisms of building organization and campaigns into simple learnings. Charlene's achievements and contribution to building socialism came not only from her activities within the Communist Party, but from activities of mass organization and campaigns. The understanding of mass work was the basis of the success of the campaign for Free Angela Davis, to Free Angela Davis, and many others, as you have heard today. Charlene's success in organization stems not only from the ability to communicate with ordinary people, But Charlene, when Charlene spoke publicly, she spoke not simply to tell a story, but to proselytize and to ensure that the message that was given was taken by each one of the people that she spoke with. I want to talk a bit about Charlene, the internationalist. Charlene visited South Africa in 1994 as an election observer. And whenever she visited South Africa, she always met a stalwart of the ANC, a veteran of the African National Congress and the South African Communist Party, Josiah Jelly. And I called Comrade Jelly to interview him about his association with Charlene. And he spoke fondly of her, and that the first time they had met was in Moscow. Thereafter, they met at party-associated programs, anti-imperialist programs, anti-apartheid conferences, and those which were held in solidarity with the ANC, with SWAPO, with the People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola and PLA, and the Front for the Liberation of Mozambique. On the 25th of April 1994, I fetched Charlene in a suburb of Johannesburg to join us in campaigning for the ANC in its first elections. I dropped her at a bus that was going to be used in the campaign, a double-decker bus, which had the roof taken off and which we used for organizing. The bus had, of course, loudspeakers, etc. Oops. From which we would greet people and create some excitement. It was about 8 a.m. in the morning, and I walked from the bus over to the ANC offices, which was on provincial offices, which was on Jeppe Street, and the headquarters was on a street called Plain Street, just a few meters away. While I was in the building, there was a loud explosion, and all of the windows in the building were blown out. A bomb had been strategically placed on Plain Street to have a maximum impact on the ANC headquarters as well as the provincial offices. We expected a second bomb, which is usually the technique that was used, because they would want to inflict as many casualties, and already there were 9 people who died from that explosion. Of course, our first concern was to evacuate the building we were in, but also to check on our friend Charlene Mitchell and the other international observers. Fortunately, the bus was a distance away and was not badly affected. Of course, of all of the international observers, Charlene was unfazed. An hour after the explosion, we left to continue the campaign, to mobilize voters. Charlene was an enigma who had no fear for herself and took action which she believed was correct. I learnt of 2 examples from Josiah Jelly. They had attended a conference, a seminar in Brussels in the 1970s, and they were in a queue waiting to board a flight. Then Charlene pointed out that there was a white man jumping the queue and went to the front of the line and boarded the plane. So Josiah went to follow up as to what had in fact happened, because the indignant Charlene had started protesting. And when Josiah went, he found out that actually the man had a first-class ticket and was allowed to board the plane. So it was not the officials bending the rules to privilege a white person, but indeed, it was a case of class discrimination. Was Charlene simply wrong because the rules didn't allow it? Here, as is the case in South Africa, but perhaps not as stark as in South Africa, the majority of the poor are black, where households are headed by black women. And in South Africa, class discrimination aligns with racial discrimination. And in short, history of white privilege is still in effect in South Africa because of our history of privilege over a period of time. Understanding building organization was really Charlene's forte. In 1977, there was a world conference against apartheid in solidarity with the peoples of Southern Africa in Lisbon, Portugal, which I attended and, of course, met Charlene there. It was an important event because Joshua Nkomo and Robert Mugabe announced the formation of the Patriotic Front between the Zimbabwe African People's Union and the Zimbabwe African National Union. However, behind the scenes, Charlene met Oliver Tambo and requested that the campaign to release Nelson Mandela be changed to the campaign to free Nelson and Winnie Mandela, because a campaign for freedom of a husband and wife would have much more public appeal. Indeed, the campaign resulted in Nelson and Winnie Mandela being household names throughout the world, and ultimately led to their freedom and our freedom as South Africans. Over the years, Charlene returned to South Africa and visited and stayed, and I visited and stayed at a house regularly here in New York. I continued in government in South Africa in various roles, and it was Charlene's counsel that helped guide me from not becoming a government bureaucrat who had lost touch with why a democratic government was formed in South Africa, to serve the people. Questions such as how a particular policy, stance on action was really going to bring poor people out of poverty, or why the lives of the poor had only changed marginally. In 2005, Charlene celebrated her 75th birthday, which we attended and brought messages of support. As I mentioned earlier, those messages of support also came from South African communists, and one such as Issa Bahad. However, we did not know what was going to happen in the next few months to follow. My wife, Thelma, who is here, suffered an aneurysm on the brain in 2006. Little did we know that in a few months after, Charlene was to have a massive stroke which would change her life forever. I would not be true to the memory of Charlene if I did not comment on the state of South African democracy, to which all of us have contributed so much. The Rainbow Nation, which Nelson Mandela dedicated his life, is it still on track? A society free of poverty, is it on track? Have we had setbacks? Yes. In the words of our President Ramaphosa, he refers to 10 lost years during the Zuma period. Having the older generation of South Africa fallen back into society defined by racial differences? In many ways, that's true, yes. But the seeds of a new society has been laid. Young people are leading the way in addressing the change. 19 million of the 60 million South African population, a third of the population, now receive social grants which keep them out of the depths of poverty. The economy is struggling, but we have taken a trajectory which is burgeoning, and indeed corruption, the real challenge, is a real challenge, but the first of a conscious opposition is underway. We would honor Charlene's memory if we would not honor Charlene's memory today, if we did not leave here today with hope and the will to change our society from under the boot of capitalism to a society which is socialist, equitable, and puts young people first. As Charlene would say, change is a constant struggle. And it is that constant struggle which has led for change in all over the world. And Charlene contributed, as Mr. Suave has indicated, to the formation of the Free South African movement and other great struggles to free not only people who are embondaged here, but people all over the world, but in particular in South Africa. Charlene lived a full life and made the world a better place. Long live the spirit of Charlene Mitchell, long live. Amandine Gewet, power to the people. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to call back to the stage Antoinette Montague and the Montague Experience.
Freedom, oh freedom, oh freedom over me. And before I be enslaved, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Come on, sing it with me. Come on. Oh, freedom. I can't hear you. Oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Freedom songs. If I had a hammer, come on y'all, I'd hammer in the morning, I'd hammer in the evening, all over this land. I'd hammer out danger, I'd hammer out a warning, I'd hammer out love between my brothers and my sisters. All over this land. If I had And so I'll sing redemption songs. They're all I've ever had, yeah. Oh, oh, pirates, yes, they rob I. Led us to the precious ship. Not long after they took I from that bottomless pit. But my hands were strengthened by the help of we Almighty. Oh, not after we shall all now be free. And so I'll sing redemption songs. They're all I've ever had. Yeah, redemption songs. All over this land. Oh, oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I be enslaved, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be home. Hey, Charlene said, no more crying, no more weeping, no wailing over me. And before we be enslaved, we'll be buried in our grave and go home to our Lord and be free. Now, we got sweet sister Angela Davis. She's coming in, so much love she gave us. Sacrificing and representing is all just a small part of it for we. But today we celebrate homegoings and Liberation Day. Oh, only we can keep us free. Come on, y'all. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, we'll speak up and make that day. Come on, y'all. Up, and be free. Let me hear you raise your voice. Oh, freedom. Wave your fist in the air. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. God bless you. God bless the band.
Antoinette Montague Experience. If you will bear with me for a moment, I'd like to read a few messages, brief messages. One is from Georgina Chabot from the People's Republic of Cuba. It is an honor. She says, it is an honor to have the opportunity of joining you in this celebration of Charlene Mitchell's life. Charlene's connection with Cuba goes back many years, and its highest point can be traced to her relationship with the founder and president of the Cuban Women's Federation, Comrade Vilma Espin, in connection with the countrywide and international campaign to free Angela Davis. She says she was privileged to stay in touch with Charlene over the years from her position then at the Department of Americas and the Central Committee of the Cuban Communist Party. In particular, Charlene excelled for her intellect and political development together with her skills as an organizer, focusing not only on the domestic issues but on international issues as well, such as the struggle to end apartheid in South Africa and against the U.S. economic blockade against Cuba. During her late years, after suffering a stroke that left her with severe paralysis and without responding to treatment, she accepted our offer to be studied and treated at a key neurologic research center in Havana, where she left a very strong impression of her discipline and willpower among the doctors and all the rehabilitation staff. May the spirit of Charlene live on in all of us, and thank you. I also have a message from Dr. Francine Chavis, who says, words cannot adequately express what a powerful impact Charlene Mitchell has had on my life's journey. Consummate organizer, leader, motivator, role model, friend, she made all the contacts and detailed arrangements for my medical school training in the German Democratic Republic from 1976 to 1982. This momentous opportunity has enabled me to be of service to my community. For this and just knowing Charlene, I will be eternally grateful. With love and embracing the Mitchell and Alexander family, Dr. Francine Chavis. And then finally, we'd like to acknowledge Vicki Ehrenstein-Yatoivo, who I believe is here, who has sent a message. Her life as an activist in the struggle for justice, solidarity, and peace reflects the profound influence of Charlene Mitchell, with whom she worked since the age of 20. She moved from the United States to Namibia in 1991 to join her husband, Andiba Yatoivo, founder of SWAPO, and presently serves as special advisor to the Minister of Labor, Industrial Relations, and Employment Creation, and is a member of the Judicial Service Commission and the Board for Legal Education. She's a gender champion, lectures law graduates on the practice of labor law and alternate dispute resolution, and continues in the struggle. At this time, if you'll bear with me for a moment, I'm going to wait for our next introduction. Is Anthony Wells here? Anthony Wells. Is Anthony Wells here? Okay, all right. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to our international sister activist, scholar, and visionary, Sister Angela Davis.
I ran. Let me catch my breath. Well, first of all, thank you, Mary Lou, Anne, Mildred, and everyone who had a hand in organizing this absolutely phenomenal tribute to Charlene. Thank you. Hey, Mildred, can you give me that water? Well, I had to run at least 2 blocks. So, I want to begin by saying that Charlene may have transitioned to the dimension of our ancestors, but all over the country and throughout the world, now and long into the future, and even if they do not realize it, people are and will be experiencing the profound and lasting impact she had on their lives. Like many others, I felt drawn to Charlene when I was quite young, in my 20s, because I sensed that she knew something very profound about the process of creating radical social change, something that I had not yet discovered. She knew how to put the pieces together, how to bring those of us together who, as individuals, would not have managed to make a major impact. But when brought together, we would be infinitely more powerful than the sum of our capacities as individuals. I did not really know how to value the art and skill of organizing until I met Charlene. Charlene would become for me the very personification of the organizer. She who knows how to transform possibility into probability and probability into actuality. She who always kept in her memory a virtual Rolodex and the numerous ways in which electricity could be generated and campaigns could be jump-started if you combine just the right elements. Human elements, political elements, ideological elements, cultural elements. Charlene taught so many of us how to express our politics in ways that sincerely invited others to join us, or to at least acknowledge that our path was not required of everyone with whom we were connected. We could seek various and oftentimes very different ways of making community. I was always utterly impressed by the way she modeled multiple modes of creating connection. Of course, there was always the vision of working class freedom, Black freedom, ultimately planetary liberation. She defined herself through the work she did on behalf of others. And I will never forget about, well, let me say first of all that I'm not going to say very much about the struggle for my freedom, because I continue to learn about the work that Charlene did when I was incarcerated. So I think that others, Margaret and others have spoken, Trevor, very profoundly about her role in that struggle. But after that long struggle for my own freedom, which was centrally choreographed by her in so many countries and so many communist parties, so many progressive organizations and alliances throughout the world, she was the one who told us on the day that I was acquitted in court that we could not allow this victory to undermine our commitment to free many more. Now, I often narrate this story as if I were the one who insisted on continuing the work to free political prisoners. But that's not exactly right. If I did voice that insistence, it was because I was listening to the voice in my head, which was Charlene's. It was her vision and her organizer's acumen that recognized how important it would be to harness the collective exhilaration and forward motion to build what we came to call the National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. And over the many years during which we developed campaigns for the freedom of particular political prisoners, Ben Chavis and the Wilmington 10, Leonard Peltier, whom we still must set free, Oscar Collazo, the Attica brothers, Joanne Little, Frank Chapman, Carlos Feliciano, and I could go on and on. I am reminded of what St. Clair Drake said about the fact that there are some forms of knowledge that are only achievable in the process of acting, doing, struggling, engaging in practice, what he called the epistemology of praxis. It strikes me now that Charlene, more than anyone else, exemplifies that way of knowing. Perhaps it was her insistence on thinking long and hard about campaigns that some people might assume were self-evident. But it was also how she asked others about their opinions, never expecting nor wanting perfunctory answers. When I think about how difficult it is to forge collectives that thrive on rather than suppress difference, I remain deeply impressed with Charlene's capacity to listen and argue if she was not in agreement. And then sometimes, even if she did agree, she wouldn't let go of the argument until she was convinced that we had exhausted all possible critiques. I remember when she decided that she wanted to leave Los Angeles and move to New York. This was, of course, the period when she became the Communist Party's candidate for president, which gave her the distinction of being the first Black woman in this country to actually run for that office. 4 years before Shirley Chisholm sought the nomination of the Democratic Party. Charlene's father, whom we all called Alex, and who was a legend in radical circles because he had taught himself how to read by reading Karl Marx's Capital. Alex called a meeting of family and friends. And I remember that her brother Franklin and Kendra were there, Don and Deacon were there. Mike, where are you, Mike? Oh, were you at that meeting, Mike? Hey, Mike. Were you at the meeting that Alex called about Charlene's decision to move to New York? Oh, you heard about it later, okay. And of course, at stake in this meeting was Charlene's decision not only to move across the country for political reasons, but this would also entail a major rift in her personal life. She would have to leave her husband. And so that was up for discussion as well. And to this day, I'm not entirely sure whether she had made an independent decision to separate from Bill, But with Charlene, one could never neatly pull apart the personal from the political. And later, when I became acquainted with the feminist slogan, "The personal is political," I thought to myself, they must be thinking about Charlene. But in mid-20th century feminist circles, many assumed that this meant that what happened in the realm of our personal lives constituted the political in a relatively unmediated manner. However, with Charlene, while it was certainly a question of never hiding the personal from view, she revealed that she was always willing to subject the realm of the personal to modes of critique that were otherwise confined to the political. And for her, intimacy never meant private. It never meant non-exposure. In fact, if you were her comrade, you never knew when she said in her characteristic way, "There's something we need to talk about." You never knew whether she wanted to discuss some intervention you had made at a meeting with which she did not necessarily agree, or whether she wanted to offer her uninvited opinion about a relationship in which you might be involved. When I met Charlene, I already considered myself an experienced traveler abroad. In fact, I had studied in Europe for a number of years. But Charlene made me realize how important it was to feel comfortable in the world, even if one did not speak the language of the particular country where one happened to be, because one could always be connected by solidarity. And so my memories of Charlene include not only running from the police in Spain, but a wonderful evening when Nelson and Winnie Mandela had a party for us in Johannesburg. You remember that, Trevor. And when we were invited to stay overnight at their home. I remember being quite surprised when I learned just how much Charlene's world was saturated with music, black music, jazz, R&B. I think that witnessing her absolute devotion to music, recorded as well as live concerts, and her deep friendships with musicians, that has all led me to take more seriously the ways in which our collective desires are conveyed through, constituted by, and preserved through music. She absolutely loved jazz piano, and I feel privileged that I was introduced to her friendship with John Hicks, her absolute love for McCoy Tyner, her deep connection with Abdullah Ibrahim. And to this day, whenever I attend one of Abdullah Ibrahim's concerts, we always talk about Charlene. And then there was also the saxophonist Frank Foster and so many others. As a matter of fact, at one point, I thought she was friends with every single jazz musician who lived in the Chelsea Hotel. And there were those musicians whom she did not personally know, but whose music accompanied her and became, along with the music of her friends, the soundtrack of her life. And so thank you, Antoinette Montague, for representing that side of Charlene for us. I still have a playlist on my phone that has migrated since the days of the iPod from device to device. And I can't really remember how I first acquired it, but I do remember, the title of the playlist, by the way, is Charlene's Music. do remember that many years ago, Stephen, maybe you'll remember when we did that, but Stephen helped me figure out how to replicate a lot of Charlene's music that was important to her. And so when I want to think about Charlene, I listen to this playlist, simply entitled Charlene's Music. It is 6 hours and 25 minutes of Carmen McRae, Nina Simone, Betty Carter, Roberta Flack, Donny Hathaway, and many others. And so these days, when I listen to Nina Simone's Ne me quitte pas, I think of it not so much as a love song, but rather as a hymn to Charlene's spirit, a plea to never abandon us as we try our best to move forward. Thank you.
At this time, I just want to say that many of us are privileged to have had our young adult years shaped in many ways by Charlene Mitchell. Some of us call ourselves perhaps her political children. But there is one person who is her son, and that is Stephen Mitchell. And I want to acknowledge Stephen Mitchell and the love for mother and son. This proud UAW member retiree, Black liberation activist in his own right, and just a marvelous human being, Stephen Mitchell.
Thank you, everybody. I'm really glad to see everybody here. Some people I haven't seen in a very long time. I'm not going to be too long because there's nothing that could be said that hasn't really been said. So I'm just going to read what I have. You have heard today how much energy my mother put into fighting for all people to be treated with dignity, for all workers to be respected for their worth. You have heard that my mother was intolerant of racism, jingoism, colonialism, imperialism, sexism, fascism, capitalism, and any other kind of ism which seeks to exploit, dehumanize, and prevent people from rising to their greatest potential. So let the celebration of life continue the way my mother would expect. Thank you.
Before I welcome back Antoinette Montague and the Antoinette Montague experience, I want to let you know that someone left glasses in the restroom. If you're looking for them, we have them here at the table. And I want to say that this is to have the beautiful musical performance at this event that we have had thus far has been extraordinary. And I just want to thank Antoinette Montague, Danny Mixon, and Dr. Melissa Slocum, and Dr. Daryl Smith right now. So thank you. Please welcome in, welcome them back again.
No complaints and no regrets. I still believe in chasing dreams and placing bets. For I have learned that all you give is all you get. So give it all with God. I've had my fun, drank my fill. And even though I'm satisfied, I'm hungry still. To find out what's beyond the hill and do it all again. So here's to life and all the joy, all the joy, all the joy she brings. Here's to life, to dreamers and their dreams. Yes. Funny how the time just flies, right? How love can go from warm hello to somber goodbyes and leave you with those memories you left behind to keep your winters warm. For there's no yes in yesterdays, and who knows what tomorrow brings or takes away. As long as I'm in this sweet game of life, I wanna play for laughs, for life, for love. Here's to life and all the joy and mercy and love it brings. Here's to sweet freedom in this life and working for all that it can bring. Everybody lift your glass up and stand and give a toast to this beautiful woman, Charlene. May all your storms be weathered, and may all that's good get better and better. Here's to love, here's to life. as around the sun the earth knows she's revolving, and the rosebuds know to bloom in early May. Just as all that's born is new, do know what I say is true. We'll be loving you always, as now can reveal the mystery of tomorrow. But in passing we'll grow older every day. Just as all that's born is new, do know what I say is true. I'll be loving you always, until the rainbow burns the stars out in the sky. Cha-cha. Until the ocean covers every mountain high. Until the day that 8 times 8 times 8 is 4. Until the day that is. We all know sometimes life, hate, and struggle can make you wish you were born in another time and place. But you can bet your lifetime's that and twice and double. We're exactly where we're meant to be placed. As now can reveal the mystery of tomorrow. But in passing we'll grow older every day. Just as kindness knows no shame, no through all your joy and pain, we'll be loving you always. God bless you. Thank you so much. I'm Antoinette Marjorie, Danny Mixon, Dr. Melissa Slover, Dr. Darren Smith. God bless you, each and every one of you. Stay strong in love, in freedom, in liberation. Oh, all the comrades in the room, lift your flag. Let's sing. I'll be loving you until the day that 8 times running like the love. Loving you just for the Sunday nights itself, always.
Presente, Charlene Mitchell Presente. One announcement, there's a repast after this event, but we all must be out of here by 5:30. You don't have to go home, but we must be out of here by 5:30. Thank you, everyone. just want to remind everyone there's a repast with food outside. Anyone who was a speaker today, we'd like you to come to the front and we'll take a photograph. And we still have the glasses of someone who may have left them in the restroom. So food is outside. Food is outside, it's not in here. So please go outside if you want to eat. All speakers, please come up. Please come up to the front. We're going to take a photograph.